Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we're going to see if we can get this marketplace find Ford FE360 to run. This is a 1974 block. It is a 360. It has the tag still here intact. It's a little bit worn, but most of the good information there. There's the 74. You can just barely make out the 360. It is mostly complete, as with everything you find on Marketplace. Previous owner says it ran when pulled. So we're going to put that to the test and see if we can get it to run. I've got it mounted on my makeshift engine stand here. These Motorhead Technique FE engine cradles. They're a fantastic company. I found that they're actually local to me and went and picked up this set just the other day, and they are absolutely amazing. Highly recommend them. So this block does have a couple issues that stand out immediately to me. This valve cover over here has seen better days. It has been smashed in a couple of different places. We may have to pull it off and just make sure that everything rotates without interfering there. Alright, so the first place to start with any marketplace find, does it actually turn over? They said it did. It didn't when I picked it up. We pulled out the big chunk of starter nose cone out of there. So now we're going to see if it actually will. It seems to be going pretty easy. I can feel compression in there. And I can hear compression. We'll see if we can get a complete turn out of it without anything binding. Not feeling like we're hitting anything. Don't hear any unusual noises. Got a little bit tight there, but it could be just the compression. It does appear to have all of its plugs in it. So yeah, it turned over fairly easy. That's always a good sign. Must have just been this nose cone from an exploded starter that was just jammed in the flywheel, sorry. All right, let's see if this thing's got any oil in it. The oil filter on here does look like it's seen better days. It has been absolutely flattened on this bottom side. I may end up just going and pulling one of my used ones out of my FE or my Fairlane, sorry. I usually change the oil on that about every 2,000 miles, so I have a bunch of these filters that are really not that dirty. Let's see what we get. There's no rust on the stick, but no oil of any kind. Okay, so that could be good or bad. Alright, I do have a little bit of used oil here that I'm going to probably pour in this. It's just oil that I drained out of my daily car. So it's a little bit dirty, but it'll be better than probably anything that's been sitting in this thing for as long as it has. We really don't need to do a full oil change on it since this whole thing will be coming apart anyway. So let's add some oil. Alright, let's get this old beat up filter off of here. Put something a little less beat up on there. Let's see if these gigantic vice grips I have will be any good at this. I don't know where my actual filter pliers went to. Nope. This wheel line's kind of in the way a bit. Okay. That was even more mangled than I thought. Not sure if you can see that, but the entire base of it's actually bent upwards. The bottom of it's just hammered in. So we're just going to put in this lightly used wicks that I pulled out of my Fairlane. It'll be better than what's there for sure. Just use a little bit of this oil to re-lubricate the previously used o-ring. Let's slide that on. Alright, now we got some lightly used oil in here. Add some of this and see how it does. All right, Let's check that level again and see if we got anything on the stick. Nope, still nothing. I wonder if they did end up draining this whole thing. Alright, we'll just keep adding. Again, I'm not too concerned if I got this old oil in there. This crank, pistons, none of this is going to be reused. We're basically just going to take this block board out, go with the stroker kit, new heads, and that's the plan. So, not too concerned if we scratch up some bearings or any of that sort. All right, nice dirty oil finally on the stick. That's what we like to see. This out of the way. So now that we got some oil in it, let's just kind of quickly walk around and soak it all in. It should have a pretty simple points ignition on it. We'll probably have to go through that, clean up the points, make sure everything's functional there. The distributor was not bolted down, it's just loosely sitting in here. The clamp for it is just in a coffee can that came with the engine. So we'll probably have to set timing, make sure the distributor's all working fine. As a Motorcraft Autolite 2100 2-barrel, looks like it's seen better days. It's in pretty rough condition. It is not locked up. It does move. I did take the spacer out of this. I've just got the big, heavy, thick gasket mounted down below that I'm hoping will at least just seal up the PCV and the EGR side. Just enough to get us to be able to idle. Like I said, I'm not sure if this carburetor is going to work in the least bit. So as long as we can just kind of fill the bowls and maybe get it to sputter a couple of times, I'll be good with that. So next up, we've got the starter wired in. We're going to give it a try and see how it goes. They said it was a reman starter. It's, like I said, it's got overspray on it, so I'm doubting that. Hopefully it'll at least turn and spin. I really don't want to have to get into starter things, but as with Marketplace, you just never know what you're going to get. So we'll give that a go and see where we can go next with this thing. Alright, we got this battery out of my old Subaru here. Hopefully it's got enough amps in it to spin this big thing over. But yeah, we'll see what we get out of this thing, if anything. These cables are actually old cables, originally out of my 63 Impala back here before I rewired it. So hopefully they're up for the task. Let's see what we get. A whole lot of nothing. I get some loud sparks when I'm not hearing even the slightest bit of attempt for that thing to spin. Alright, so what we're going to try to do is just take this little band cover off the back of this thing, see if we can kind of get in there and just turn this over a couple times with the trusty screwdriver here. See if that thing will, or that'll at least get this thing spinning. Otherwise we'll pull it off, maybe pull it apart, take a look inside, see if we can get it going. I do believe they have one in stock in town. So rather than sitting here and fighting with this thing, might just end up replacing it. Alright, after playing around with that other starter for a while, it was clear it was defective, so I gave it a quick AutoZone rebuild. Luckily enough they had one in town, so we'll give this one a try. It worked on the bench, so I'm expecting it'll work in the car. Get the camera set up here and we'll see how this thing sounds. Alright, I wasn't able to find my solenoid, so we're going to have to do this the old-fashioned, just drop the cable straight on the battery post way. See how it goes. I haven't pulled the plugs out of this because there's quite a bit of debris in there. I just don't want to drop anything down the cylinder, so we'll just see how it goes. It's been turning over pretty good. I did put a little bit of fogging oil down it a second ago. Cranked it over a little bit, so we'll see how this goes. So other than that starter being just a little bit noisy, it seems to turn over just fine. Sounded like you might have just a tiny little bit of a gallop. I do have all of the plugs in here. I'm hoping I won't have to pull those out. Again, just because there's quite a bit of debris just sitting around all those old plugs. So if we can avoid that for now, we'll try to. So next I'm going to run a wire down for the coil to the battery here so I can get that powered up when I need to. Alright, so we've got our coil wired in now. I did have to replace the end here on it as it was holding on by hopes and dreams. Other than that, let's take a look at our rotor button here. Looking pretty clean. The rotor itself was pretty clean. There's no corrosion down inside there. This camera's not going to be picked up. The lighting here is not very good. Yeah, so everything looks pretty clean in here. Even the points themselves are really clean. There's very minimal corrosion on them. Looks like they might have been replaced fairly recently before this thing was parked. The wire here is a little bent up, but doesn't look to be chewed through or anything like that. No shorts in there. We're gonna rotate it over right quick and just make sure the points are opening and closing. They're open right now. Looks to be about 20 thousandths by eye. Bendix on the starter there is clanking a bit. But yeah, looks like the point's just closed. Just opened. Back to closed. So I'm going to hook up the positive wire on the coil over here. Grab my flathead. Give these things a couple of flicks and see if we can get some spark out of this. Yeah, so not sure if I'm going to be able to get you a view here. There's not a lot of good ground with everything they've painted over under here. So let's see if I can get you a shot where you can see that this thing is sparking very well here. So yeah, we should just need to set some timing on this thing. And other than that, we got spark. Just need some fuel and we should be able to hear a bark off. Alright, so I just pulled out the spark plug on cylinder number 1 here and it's looking extremely good. There's not a lot of rust on there, just the tiniest. A little bit of ash. Looks like it was running pretty good when they parked it. So we're going to set this to top dead center, get that distributor dropped in here and get the base timing set. Then we'll start putting pieces back together and get ready to hear this thing bark. Alright, we're back. I've got it set for about 10 degrees of advance. Looking down here on this balancer, not sure if the camera will pick it up, but luckily enough this one's marked. It has both 30 degrees before and 30 degrees after. And somebody had come along and put in these white marks that you can just barely see underneath the needle there. So I set the distributor in, set it right around for 10 degrees down there at the crank, and then set the points breaking right where I dropped it in. So not really sure what the normal plug ordering is on the Fords, and the firing order is right there on the intake manifold. I'm just not sure where you're usually supposed to point number 1. So in this case, I just started here, right off the wire, so it was easy for me to remember. So I did check for spark. Did check for a spark while I was cranking through the cap and everything else. Everything's looking good, so we should be all set to see if we can get this thing to bark off. I'm gonna set the camera up here a little bit further away, and we'll give it a go. All right, so I got my handy dandy little spray bottle here, which is filled with premix. So we get a little bit of oil on the top end, as well as fuel, so just gonna spray a little bit in there. Just see if we can hear it pop off, see if there's any major issues, stuff like that. So here goes nothing. that's on fire. And man, is that loud. Oh, I didn't even think about the fact that that exhaust manifold is open right here down in front of my face. So, oh yeah, she is very, very loud. Yeah, I might try to move this battery forward slightly more so my face isn't right there in the manifold. All right, maybe that'll be a tad bit better. It fired up, it didn't run for very long. I mean, obviously, just kind of spraying through the top here, it's gonna be hard to get it started and then run back to my bottle and keep spraying it. And it's so bloody loud in here, it's kind of hard to keep it going. So see if we can get it to fire up, maybe idle a little bit, try to stay clear of that exhaust manifold back there. It's obviously extremely loud. So here's attempt number 2. Well, nothing that time. Sounded like it was about to. It's been hard being on this side of the block trying to like manipulate the throttle, especially since I don't have really a loser switch. I didn't have the solenoid for this, so I got to do it the old-fashioned way. Oh, you know, I just realized from when I set top dead center, I left the plug out of it. So I'm going to get that dropped in there and see if maybe that helps us a little bit. All right, I say we give this thing a try with all of its cylinders. All right, I did put a little bit of fuel in the bowl this time, so maybe we'll get something a little bit longer. Here goes. Well, I don't know about you, but I'd say that was almost an idle. Pretty deaf now, obviously, from open header here in this tiny little garage, but it did seem to idle. Didn't hear any obnoxious noises. I think we can call this good. So yeah, overall, I guess sometimes they actually do run when pulled. All right, so I went and pulled the valve cover off, and you can just see just how bad this one is bashed in. It is just mangled. But none of it looks like it was interfering. I don't see any kind of witness marks, grinding or anything like that inside of here. So despite being beat up, it was doing fine. So without the PCV valve being in there, I mean, there's just tiny little bit of surface rust over this one rocker arm here and a little bit of sludge buildup. But other than that, it is very, very clean under here. You can see we're getting oil pressure. All that nice dirty oil I put in is pooling up here, which means that we're getting flow through the top end through these factory rocker shafts, which are the adjustable. There's just a tiny little bit of buildup, like where my finger is here, and just a little bit over there. But I'll take that any day compared to like what my 352 is. Very, very, very clean. So with how easy this was to get going, I mean, we basically just set the timing. Bolted the carburetor on here, took the old spacer out. We did nothing to the carburetor whatsoever. And I mean, it looks like it's just been sitting on a shelf for the past 40 years. I'm absolutely shocked that we managed to get it to idle for even a couple of seconds, as it were. The points distributors, I mean, usually you just have to scrape some points, set timing, but we got lucky with that. We just set timing, didn't have to do anything with points. Just had to replace the butt connector on the wire coming out of the distributor, as it just fell off, but that tends to happen. Other than that, just put a little bit of oil in it, pulled the nose cone of a busted starter off of it, and that's all it took. So pretty happy. I'm going to strip it all down, get it down to its bare block, try to get it off to the machine shop here as soon as I can. Other than that, I'm very happy with this Motorhead Technique engine cradle stands. I picked these up particularly for these FE engines, and I absolutely love these things. They're stout, they're powder coated, they're very sturdy, they take up very, very little room. And the casters that these things come with are just fantastic. They give you these massive, massive wheels, which are kind of like a hard plastic, polyurethane perhaps wheel, which tends to just roll a lot smoother over like these concrete floors. They are ball bearing. They're pretty tall. It just makes it super easy to roll these things around. I've got like my LQ4 over here, which has these like cheap hardware store metal casters, and rolling that thing around is just an absolute nightmare. So if you're in the market, I'll include a link to their website below. They've got them for Fords, the Chevys, the small blocks, pretty much everything you can think of. So I think that's going to do it for this video. Maybe I'll record tearing this thing all down just so we can kind of see what it looks like internally there. I've also got that stuck flathead back there to strip down, try to get that off to the machine shop as well. Don't worry, it is not going in the Model A. The Model A is just resting, waiting out the winter. My next set of videos will be with my Model AA, which does have a flathead V8 in it, but it needs a whole host of work. It'll probably end up being a complete series. But as far as this FE here goes, that's going to do it for getting it to run. We'll catch you next time.